Today's lesson is about subtraction of whole numbers. Subtraction is the operation that is the complete opposite of addition. In addition, we always get bigger numbers than the numbers that we already add. For example, 3 plus 3 equals 6. However, in subtraction, the number that we get is often much smaller than the original number that we start with. For example, 10 minus 2 equals 8. So we ended up with a smaller number. So to subtract means to remove from what we already have. In an example here, let's say I have 3 tomatoes and one of them falls to the ground and gets squashed and I lose one of the tomatoes. So I started with 3 tomatoes, one got lost, and I ended up with 2 tomatoes instead. This operation that we have here is subtraction. 3 minus 1 equals to 2. When we are talking about the difference between two terms, we are saying the big number minus the small number. And the difference between these two numbers is always smaller than the big number that we started with. I'll give you some examples here. 14 minus 9 is 5, and 15 minus 10 is also 5. So the difference between these two numbers, which is this one right here, this is the difference, is always smaller than the bigger number right here, and this is the smaller number. So big minus small equals the difference. Let's have another example here. 22 minus 9 is 13. Likewise, 23 minus 10 is also 13. As you can see here, the difference, again, 13, is smaller than the bigger number, which is 22 and 23 in these cases. One last example is 17 minus 8. That's equal to 9. And 19 minus 10 is also equal to 9. So again, the difference between these two numbers is smaller than the bigger number here. In this case, however, the difference, which is 9, is bigger than the small number, which is 8 and 10 right here. So what we need to remember is that the difference is always smaller than the first number we're using, which is the big number. Another way in which you will be seeing subtraction questions is, for example, when someone asks you, find the difference between 27 and 12. We know that 27 is bigger than 12. And what we do, to find the difference, we do 27 minus 12, and that is equal to 7 minus 2 is 5, and then 2 minus 1, that is 15. Now that we have practiced some subtraction, let's go on to slightly more difficult examples. 519 minus 345. Always start from the number, from the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, etc. So 9 minus 5 is 4. 1 minus 4, oops, we can't do that. So 1 needs to borrow from 5. 5 drops to 4, and 1 gains a 10, so it becomes an 11. Always add an extra 1 beside whatever number you have here, once you borrow from the number that is to the left of it. 11 minus 4, that is 7. And then we have 4 here. 4 minus 3, that is 1. Our answer is 174. A slightly more difficult question here. 5 minus 2 is 3. 1 minus 3, we cannot do that. So 1 borrows from its neighbor and becomes 11. But its neighbor is 0. So 0 goes and takes a 1 from 4 and becomes a 3, and in the process 0 turns into a 9. 11 minus 3 is 8. And 9 minus 7, that is 2. And 3 minus 1, that is also 2. 2002 minus 1236. Again, 2 minus 6, we cannot do that, so 2 needs to borrow from its neighbor, but its neighbor is 0. 0 always, if you're borrowing from it, becomes a 9. And 0's neighbor is also 0, so it borrows again, becomes another 9. And then it borrows from the neighbor that actually is a number that is greater than 0, and that is 2. It becomes a 1. 12 minus 6, that is a 6. 9 minus 3, also a 6. 9 minus 2, that is a 7. And 1 minus 1, that is a 0. So we have notes over here. When we borrow from a 0, the 0 must become a 9, even if you have more than one 0 beside each other. When a number borrows from its neighbor, it increases by 10. So, as you see here, when 1 borrowed from 0, which borrowed from 4, it became 1 plus 10, which is 11. Always just add an extra 1. The same here with 2. When it borrowed from its neighbor, it became 12. See, we just added an extra 1. One final example. Dana bought a dress for £107. Tara bought a dress for £78. How much more did Dana's dress cost? Well, we can find that out by saying 107 minus 78 because we are trying to find the difference between these two numbers. 7 minus 8, we can't do that because we need a bigger number over here. So 7 becomes 17, and it borrows from its neighbor, which is 0, and 0 becomes a 9. And then 1, when it goes, it becomes a 0. 17 minus 8, how much is that? It is a 9. And then 9 minus 7, that is a 2. So the difference between Dana and Tara's dress is £29. So Dana's dress cost £29 more than Tara's dress. And this concludes our lesson for today. Thank you.